Hey guys, welcome back to another video. And today what I'm going to do is go over some of my favorite games on one of my favorite systems of all time. I think I've mentioned this before. I was a huge fan of the 16-bit era and still am. Sentimentally, it's probably my favorite era of gaming and generation of gaming. I would say probably the PS4 generation. This last one may have overtaken it. I think the PS4 generation was just absolutely incredible. The sheer volume of games and the variety of games in the PS4 generation, Xbox One generation was just stunning. But as far as just from a sentimental value, like this was my peak. The 16-bit era came out in 1989. I was a teenager, and I was right in that sweet spot where these games were aimed specifically at me. So I definitely loved this generation. It's always going to have a special place in my heart. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over the 10, or at least my favorite 10 games on the Sega Genesis. This was really tough to narrow down. There's a lot of games that I can't believe missed this list, but that just goes to show the incredible quality of games on this generation. I mean, I don't have on this list games like Golden Axe. I don't have games on this list like Castle of Illusion. I don't have games on this list like Splatterhouse 2 or 3. I don't have games like Rock Knight Adventure. I mean, these are incredible games. Make no mistake about it. But I had to narrow it down to 10. I'm going to stick to 10. I like doing these top 10 lists and discussing them. So that's what I'm going to do. So just so you know, those are the games that didn't make it. And you might laugh at the ones that did over those. But hey, that's part of the discussion. Please be sure to hit that comment or like, subscribe. You guys know the deal. I'm rambling now, but stick around, and I'm now going to get into the list. So at number 10, now this was probably one of the best licensed games that ever came out in my estimation. I waited forever for this game to come out on the Genesis, and back in the day, they didn't really tell you like when a game exactly was coming out. You just kind of had a vague idea. Like you'd go by the magazines, and they'd give you kind of like Electronic Gaming, and they'd give you like a June 1990. Like kind of a very vague time frame, and the stores had no ideas. So I remember this came out in the summer of 1991, and that's all I knew, that's when the game would come out. So I would call Babbage's Electron Boutique every day, be like, did it come in? Did it come in? And finally, when it did, I was like, it was just awesome. And that's how much I was waiting for this game. And it's based on one of my all-time favorite movies. And the game is Batman, from the 1989 film. Now, I can't separate in my mind the movie and the game. Maybe if my love for the movie wasn't as great, maybe I wouldn't love the game as much. But I adore this game. It follows the movie just beat for beat. It's a great side-scrolling action game. I loved it. The only problem with it is that maybe it's a little too short, but it's a good difficulty level. It's not impossible, but I always loved the game. And like I said, I have so much sentimental attachment to it. Next game is, this was on my top shooters list, and this is definitely one of my favorite shooters. Genesis was awesome for shooters, as you guys probably know by now. A lot of my favorite shooters came from the Genesis, and this one is, oh man, it blew me away when it first came out. The game is Forgotten Worlds, and this is basically a combination of a shooter and Contra. That's the best way to describe it. It's a two-player game. It's got really cool controls. Just a phenomenal, phenomenal game. Next is a game which came out pretty early on in the Genesis life cycle, and I remember getting it. And the predecessor to this game was on Nintendo, and I loved it on Nintendo, so I was super excited to get this on the Genesis as the sequel. And this game is Ghouls and Ghosts. This is probably, especially early on, probably one of the best looking Genesis games. It's the soundtrack is iconic. I mean, the music is just incredible. It's a very hard game, but it's a very rewarding game. It's a great action platformer. Great music, great atmosphere. Giant bosses that fill up the screen. It was way ahead of its time as far as like the capabilities and pushing the system. Ghouls and Ghosts was a really incredible game. Next is a game which I believe came out actually kind of later in the Genesis cycle, and I really didn't discover it actually until years later. But it's if you're a fan of side-scrolling games like Contra, Metal Slug, games like that, this is right up there. This game, in fact, I think this game is better than any Metal Slug game and a lot of Contra games. Really, the only Contra game I think that's maybe better than this is Contra 3 Alien Wars. But as a side-scroller, it doesn't get any better than this. The game is Gunstar Heroes. And this is kind of a pricey game now. It goes for over $100 complete, but it's well worth it. It's just an incredible, incredible game. A lot of fun. In all these games, I should have kind of mentioned it before. They're all kind of pricey. They're all, I would say, like Batman. I mean, I haven't looked up the price in a while. So I'm just going off the top of my head. I think it's probably about a $60 to $75 game at this point. Forgotten Worlds, I'm not even sure. I can't even venture a guess. Maybe about $40, $50 at this point. I know Ghouls and Ghosts is up there. It's probably about $75 at this point. Gunstar Heroes I know is probably $100, $125 at least. This next one is probably the cheapest on my list. Because it's so mass produced, and the game is Sonic 2. I mean, what is there to say about Sonic aside that's never been said before? Really nothing. Sonic 2, in my estimation, is the best Sonic game of all time. Maybe now with Sonic Mania, it has maybe pushed it, but Sonic 2 was just the pinnacle of the franchise in my estimation. For whatever reason, Sonic 3, Sonic Knuckles never grabbed me the same way. Sonic CD was actually really good, but Sonic 2 on the Genesis was just a top-notch game. It was a system seller. I mean, it was included with all the with the system. I mean, he became the mascot for Sega, and to this day really is. So, Sonic 2. And it's actually not an expensive game at this point. Next is another early Genesis game, and I love the predecessor to this game. It was an arcade game. I had it on the Sega Master System. I played it to death. And when this came out, this game blew me away. This game, another one, ahead of its time. This came out in, I want to say, like October of '89, very shortly after the Genesis came out. And the graphics, the music is really what set this game apart. The music in this game is incredible. Just awesome bosses, awesome platforming, action, you name it. This game, as far as an action game, it's almost perfect. Some people say that the next one in the series is actually better. I don't agree. I think this one is still the best in the series, and it is Revenge of Shinobi. And when I say the next one, I'm talking about Shinobi 3. Shadow Dancer technically came out before Shinobi 3, but that's almost like its own thing. Uh, it's part of the franchise, but it's yeah, Shadow Dancer is kind of the black sheep of it. But it's also a really good game. But Revenge of Shinobi, in my estimation, was the best one. Next, and these top four are splitting hairs. I kind of knew that these would be the top four, but it was hard for me to really figure out which one is which. But at number four, I'm gonna go with one of the greatest beat 'em up franchises, one of the greatest like comic franchises, iconic characters. I mean, you name it. And it is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: The Hyperstone Heist. And this game, I don't think gets nearly enough love. It came out on the Genesis after Turtles in Time came out on the Super Nintendo, and really got overshadowed by Turtles in Time, which is it's unfortunate because I think it's really on par with Turtles in Time. It's similar. It has a lot of the same stages, but it also has some unique stages. I actually think it looks a little better than Turtles in Time. Like, there's something about the colors. The colors just to me look a little better, and the animations actually look a little better than Turtles in Time to me. The only thing Turtles in Time had over this game is that you can throw the foot soldiers into the screen, which you can't do in this one because the Genesis was not capable of doing like scaling mode 7 effects, at least not well. So that's really the difference. But this was a great two-player Turtles game. It's one of the best Turtles games there is. So Hyperstone Heist, like I said, it's right there with Turtles in Time. I almost have a hard time separating the two, honestly, because they're almost the same game, but a little different. It's hard to explain. Like it's hard to like say call it its own game, but it's different enough that it is. So at number four, I have the Hyperstone Heist. At number three, I have one of my favorite shmups of all time, and I went over this in a little more detail in my top shmups video, and that is Thunder Force 3. Really, not a whole lot more to say about it aside from this is one of the greatest shmups of all time. Some people would argue that Thunder Force 4 or Lightning Force in the United States was better. I don't think so. I always had an affinity for Thunder Force 3. I thought the graphics were just incredible. The stages are so varied. The graphics just pop. The colors, the speed of the game, the control of the weapons. It's just a shooting perfection. And number two is another shmup, and Thunder Force 3 it's a pricey game. I think it goes for about 100 now. Hyperstone Heist, I want to say, goes for probably about 100, 125. Shinobi's been kind of all over the place. So my guess it's probably in the 50 to 75 range at this point. But again, I'm going off the top of my head on this. Next, at number two, is one of my favorite shmups of all time, and it's also one of the rarest games on the Genesis, and one of the most expensive. I think there's only maybe one game that's more expensive than this, or two, depending on if you count the Outback Joey as a game. But be that as it may, and number two is the classic Musha. Now, I actually had Musha growing up, and the reason I got it was because I played at a buddy's house Blazing Lasers on the TurboGrafx 16, and I was so jealous. Blazing Lasers, for those of you who have not played it, is an incredible shoot-'em-up game. It's actually in the same family of games as Musha, which is in the Elite family of games, and Blazing Lasers is incredible. And Musha was the closest thing to Blazing Lasers on the Genesis, and I fell in love with this game. Like, I played it for hours and hours on end. The weapons, the way they build on themselves, the music, the graphics, it's it's an unbelievable game, and it's really unfortunate how much it costs, because it really limits the market as to who can play this game unless you emulate it. But it's an incredible game. I mean, it goes complete now, $500, $600, $700. It's out of control. I mean, I got this, unfortunately, when I sold my Genesis way back in the day. You know, this game went with it. But when I reacquired it, I want to say probably about 10 years ago at this point, I got it for probably about $150. I mean, right now it's 4 or 5 times that amount. So I'm really happy that I do have it. And the number one game in this, in my opinion, on the Sega Genesis, and it's also one of the greatest beat 'em ups of all time, I talked about it in that video, is Streets of Rage 2. Beat 'em ups and shmups were kind of neck and neck as far as my favorite genre of games. And for the longest time, beat 'em ups were really hard to come by, good ones on home consoles. Like Double Dragon came out on the NES, it came out on the Sega Master System, Double Dragon 2 came out, but they really had a hard time recreating the true arcade beat 'em up experience until the Streets of Rage series. And Streets of Rage 1 was an incredible game when it came out on Genesis. However, Streets of Rage 2 is, I mean, it's revered. It is such an unbelievable game, from the size of the characters to the movesets to the music to the graphics. It's incredible. And if it wasn't for Streets of Rage 4, which is one of my favorite games on the PS4 generation at this point, Streets of Rage 2 would have been the best beat 'em up of all time, pretty much. Streets of Rage 2, it's gotten up there in price a little bit, but it's not crazy. I want to say it's in the $50, $60, $70 range, in that neighborhood. So that's Streets of Rage 2. Now, one option which people could have if you don't want to like emulate it on like the Genesis on a RetroPie is picking up this thing right here, the Sega Genesis Mini, which is essentially like the Nintendo Mini. This has 40 games, and a lot of the games from my list are actually on here. So just to go through what's on here. Well, here's one it's not on my list, but it was close. Castlevania Bloodlines. Comic Zone's a great game. Contra Hardcore. These are all games which I actually considered for my list. Ghouls and Ghosts is on here. Golden Axe is on here. Gunstar Heroes is on here from my list. Let's see. Actually, Shinobi 3 is on here, but not Revenge of Shinobi. Sonic 2 is on here. Streets of Rage 2 is on here. Thunder Force 3 is on here. So a lot of the games that are on my list are actually on this. And given the crazy prices of Genesis games, this might not be a bad alternative for you guys. So anyways, thanks for sticking around listening to my rambling. I always appreciate it. Let me know what you guys think of my list. What are your favorite games? What are some games that you would put on as one of the best Sega Genesis games? What would you take off of mine? Let me know what you guys think. Again, please comment, like, subscribe to the channel. I greatly appreciate it. And check me out on Instagram. I'm at Olegs, OLEGS Collecting. All one word, Olegs Collecting. And check me out on there. I always post pickups, that kind of stuff on my Instagram page. So check that out. And till next time, take care. Bye.